Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash as just a property, but more specifically the Flash movie, the DCEU, and just, it's a bit of drama alert, isn't it? So the Flash movie, it's been one tainted as hell project since the announcement of Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, aka The Flash, back in 2014. From memory, I think it was announced that Ezra would be playing Barry in the DCU on the week of or just after the Flash TV show premiered. So it was either just after it premiered or around the second episode airing back in 2014. It was that long ago. And of course, it's been tainted up until this very day. And that looks like it's going to carry on for the short term at the very least, but also just the next year or so, roughly. So I think you would have to have not used, or just not use at the moment, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, I don't know, Owl Mail or something, or just any social media platform to have at least not heard one of the incidences involving Ezra Miller. These, of course, starting all the way back at the beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020 when Ezra was filmed choking a woman at a bar in, I think, like Iceland or Finland, some country in Europe where it was cold. But anyway, nothing really came from that. Then Operation Hawaii started for Ezra, where case upon case upon case was brought up in the press, where it looked like Ezra was taking part in the amazing race across the Hawaiian island, but the objective was to allegedly harass as many people as possible, which included threatening lives, among other things. Now, Ezra was apparently arrested, then let go twice, and then there was some radio silence in the whole thing, and nothing really came up about Ezra at all. I think it was early February or something. It just went, silent. And that is up until the past 2 weeks or so. And I haven't really made a video specifically on this stuff just because it's just nothing from Warner Brothers has come out up until what we're going to be going over in this video. And that was really what I was waiting for. It was like, okay, well, all these police reports and stuff can come out and we can go, oh, okay, well, this is going to happen. But I don't really care about this drama specifically. I don't really care about personal lives and stuff. If you do something wrong, you get punished and everything like that. My main focus is, am I going to get this damn movie or not? Because that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's where the Warner Brothers side comes into things. And that's why I'm doing a video now, because that stuff's coming out. So yeah, that's why we're talking about it now. So we are just going to highlight certain portions of the Deadline article that broke this news just before the weekend. And over the weekend, other places were starting to repost their articles with updated information and stuff. So people are backing up what this Deadline article is saying, because I did hold off doing this video as well for a couple of days just to see if PR people for specifically Ezra and just Warner Brothers itself came out to debunk this, which has not happened. So that's not happened. Now, that usually means that what's being stated here is generally, going, generally in the right area as to what's being said and what's going to go down. However, it must be said, this news isn't overly surprising, but yeah, this is what Deadline said. And just to clarify, the first bit is the latest allegations against Ezra, and then we're going to jump into what's happening via Warner Brothers. There have been 2 more rounds of unflattering headlines just in the last 2 weeks for the 29-year-old Miller, who identifies as non-binary. The Daily Beast reported that there was a temporary harassment prevention order this week from a 12-year-old and a mother in Greenfield, MA. I'm not from America, I don't know what that state is anyway. Against the actor after Miller allegedly menaced the family and acted inappropriately towards the non-binary child. Last week, the parents of an 18-year-old named Dakota Iron Eyes filed paperwork asking a judge to issue an order of protection against the actor on behalf of their child, saying Miller groomed and brainwashed Dakota. So those are some heavy keywords that don't really go down well, and you don't really want to be branded with, if you know what I mean. But here is what is coming from Deadline in regards to what Warner Brothers is discussing in-house about this crazy situation. Not only how to go forward with just Ezra Miller as an employee, but also the Flash as a property and just the DCEU character of the Flash as well. Deadline has heard the studio has tried getting help for Miller, but the troubling headlines continue to pile up. Could you send a potential liability on a global publicity tour and have the actor anchor a huge studio franchise play? Zaslav has several choices and he will make one of them soon. Among them, he can pull back on heavily promoting the summer 2023 film, confining it to some P&A and no publicity tour, or he can relegate it to streaming with HBO Max and take a write-off, or lean in toward making the movie a hit and then drop Miller if they can't straighten things out. Warner Brothers did that when it dropped Johnny Depp from the Grindelwald character in the Fantastic Beasts franchise after the actor's well-publicized, unsuccessful UK lawsuit. The studio replaced Depp with Mads Mikkelsen. There is no winning in this for Warner Brothers, one studio source tells us. This is an inherited problem for Zaslav. The hope is that the scandal will remain at a low level before the movie is released, and hope for the best to turn out. I mean, God, you're dreaming there. Sources said even if no more allegations surface, the studio won't likely keep Miller in the Flash role in future DC films. That would mean replacing him in the future, but there is still a $200 million investment on the line with the first film, and Warner Brothers execs have to be cringing at each new press report. And I think it's just not the executives. I think it's just anyone that was looking forward to this film. Now, what options do they have? And we're going to go over a few because I'd say there's 3 or 4. I think I've written down 4. But the first thing that has to be said, and obviously I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say in the comments in regards to where you think they should go in regards to these options, or at least list them in regards to what you think is the best one to the worst one. But obviously we'll get to that in a second. But as I said, the first thing that has to be said, you have to feel bad for Andy and Barbara Muschietti, who are the director and producers of the film, along with Christina Hodson, who wrote the movie, as well as just the other people in it, whether it's the actors, the main actors like Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, Kiersey Clemens, Sasha Calle, and even just people that would, some would be hoping that it would be a big boost in their career or something, especially someone like Sasha Calle, or maybe like someone that has like a minor role that's, maybe like eye-catching or something. And, you'd expect a Flash movie to do that. And though some people might roll their eyes and not believe it, if there wasn't these current issues around the film, or even just minor issues around the film, the Flash movie would have most likely been a likely billion-dollar film. I mean, you have 2 Batmen, one from, the older generation of Michael Keaton and the newer generation of Ben Affleck. You have the Flash itself, which has been a TV show for almost a decade and has, grew the character in popularity. And then you're involved in the multiverse, there's Supergirl aspects as well, and who knows what else. And that's not saying it was a 100% certainty to hit $1 billion, but it was a damn good chance. And coming out in 2023, where worries around viruses and stuff would hopefully be, a distant thought, hopefully. But yeah, what can they do going forward with this project? And we will go from easiest to hardest, in my opinion, at the very least. So the first one, you just release the movie. And obviously that Deadline article sort of referenced that. You just release the movie with no promotion campaign outside of trailers or very limited cast interviews, and it's like controlled. If not, Warner Brothers does the interviews themselves and then hands them out to, your morning talk shows and everything like that, and uploads them to YouTube, and that's how they do it. They don't invite, Variety. They don't invite Deadline. They don't invite all these different journalists to do the interviews. Warner Brothers PR does the interviews themselves, films it, and then sends them out. That's how they could do it if they really want to make sure there's no other potential slip-ups. But even with those trailers, as I mentioned before, you don't really show Ezra as Barry, probably. You probably just show him as the Flash in the suit. So he's mostly covered up, and that would probably be the same with posters as well. It's, it's the Flash. It's not Barry Allen. You don't actually see fully Ezra. It's Ezra in the suit. And you really wouldn't be able to do press junkets, as I was saying before, at least with Ezra specifically. You'd have to sort of control it. But that obviously means there would be no premiere for the movie. There'd just be a big elephant in the room, even if they did press stuff without Ezra, just because surely Ezra ends up being the topic of conversation, or just a bit awkward referencing certain things and everything like that. It'd be avoiding a potential other disaster, in my opinion. So I think just releasing the movie with limited thing, this is the way to make the most money from it and try and make some of that money back, because it was a big budget movie. And I still think if they released it, regardless of this drama that's going on, I still think it makes like 600 to 700 million in the box office worldwide, just because you got to remember the general audience doesn't really hear about this stuff too much. However, you never know what happens in the next year leading up to that mid 2023 release, because all of a sudden all the major things could start putting it out there, trying to tarnish the movie. You never know. And like, that's not saying it's not deserved, because it's like the lead character is the one that's, being involved in all this drama. So I still think releasing it in theaters is the best option in regards to a business sense, and just, I guess, in regards to supporting the other people in the film. But you never know what could happen in this next year or so in regards to other things tarnishing it. The other option, which that Deadline also mentions, is releasing on HBO Max. Obviously a massive loss of money. Would probably bring in some subscribers to write off some of the budget for the film, but not that much. And of course, torrenting's a big thing. and it would be a lot of people's go-to, especially if they want to make a stance and everything like that, especially in countries outside of the USA where I don't know where necessarily the movie would go, because HBO Max is only in a handful of countries and areas. So like, would they, in those other countries where HBO Max is, would it still go to theaters, or would other streaming services have to buy it, similar to like the Snyder Cut situation? I'm not too sure how it would go, but at least people could see it. It gets out there, but you're losing a decent amount of money. The third option is reshoot scenes with a new actor. And this is a very expensive option, but it also brings up the question, who would they recast in the role? Now, since this whole Ezra Miller stuff has been happening, but specifically over the past 2 weeks, whenever Ezra Miller trends on Twitter, and maybe it happens on other platforms as well, but specifically Twitter, Grant Gustin trends along with it. It's always Ezra Miller, and then below that, Grant Gustin. And it's not because the new Flash episode is airing. It's happening on the weekends. It's happening on days that the new episode of The Flash is not on. So that really shows you that a lot of people want Grant Gustin to fill this thing. Now, I think it's a good idea if they want to use Grant Gustin in the role, if it's for a temporary means before moving maybe to like Wally West as the movie Flash. I don't see them really continuing on with Barry Allen in a long form role, just because it's going to be tarnished by the whole Ezra Miller situation. So they'll probably want to be moving over to Wally West sooner rather than later in their initial plans. However, why not use a familiar person in that role? And Grant Gustin would feel that really well. Or you get another really well-known actor that's, that in that age range, that would be willing to take up that role. Obviously, it's a bit of a tarnished role, but that money speaks. Money conducts the world. So they probably just hand out, hey, we need you to do this and we'll give you double than what I guess we would normally give someone for this type of, sized role, or whatever you want to call it. But regardless of whether it's Grant that goes into that, which I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, as I said, if it was like a temporary thing. I don't know if it'd be like a long-term thing, just because I don't know if Grant would want to do that. But then again, Grant's the one that has to decide that. But regardless of who they do, if they do the whole recasting thing for this movie, they'd have to delay the movie. And like, also 2 to 3 movies in the current DCEU slate that have finished filming rely on the Flash movies events in regards to like changing the timeline for those movies to work. Like, they have Michael Keaton in them. So the timeline has to change from the Flash movie to include Michael Keaton in those movies, or at least to make it make sense why he's showing up and talking to these characters. It's a big issue. So I think recasting is the cleanest option. Like, recasting and reshooting scenes with a new actor is the cleanest option, where there's nothing overly tarnishing the film, but it's not only going to be expensive to refilm it. Like, I saw someone on Twitter who was like an analyst for like production costs and like other reshoot examples, said it could be like up to 100 million if they reshoot like everything, but they could sort of like maybe like do VFX to maybe swap certain scenes with the new actor with the body of Ezra or whatever it is. But it'd be so expensive, especially considering the size of the role that Ezra played in this film. But yeah, as I said, I think it's the cleanest option, but definitely the most expensive. And the last option is probably the one that Warner Brothers doesn't want to do at all, but some people are suggesting it, and that's vaulting the movie, which means it's never to be seen. It's just locked away. The only people that would have ever seen it now would have been the test screening audiences, where in those test screenings, this movie is getting good results. Now, this can happen, but it's unlikely because of how much money has been invested into this film. Warner Brothers would be wanting to try and make some cash back on this film. Like, if it was a lower budget movie, like a comedy, for example, yeah, vaulting could happen. But with a movie this size, I mean, Warner Brothers would do whatever they can, you'd have to think, to release it. Like, they would 100% go and reshoot scenes with a new actor rather than vault it, just because at least they can release it in cinemas, hopefully, and maybe make $1 billion, because it doesn't have Ezra on the poster or anything like that. But vaulting is definitely an option, but it's, in my opinion, the least likely option, just because of how much money has been invested into this film. But overall, what do I think is going to happen? Now, obviously, I've listed from like what I think is the easiest to the hardest, or the most likely to the least likely. And my brain tells me that they will just release it in theaters with limited press and just hope on, I guess, well-edited trailers, and I guess a Hail Mary that a good amount of the general audience doesn't learn of what Ezra is accused of, or at least that it doesn't turn them off turning up to the theater and watching it. However, my want would be recasting, but that is expensive, as I said, especially in the case of this film. So maybe just reshooting or adding in a scene right at the end of the movie that maybe shows a new Barry Allen appearance due to Flashpoint, So we know like Michael Keaton's taking over as a Batman because of the change in the timeline. It looks like Supergirl's replacing Superman as a change in the timeline. Well, maybe one of the other changes is Barry Allen becomes a new actor, whether that is Grant Gustin or someone else. Now, I think that's just the best outcome possible if they are going, or if they aren't going to do a full reshoot, is just quickly get a new actor and keep it as a surprise. They could literally advertise it as like a surprise at the end of the movie that you get to see this new actor that is taking over as Barry Allen. It doesn't come out, they don't announce it who it is, and it's a surprise that people have to show up to in the opening weekend to find out. And it's like this big reveal, and it's really, really cool. So they could advertise if they wanted to, and turn a really bad situation in regards to the Ezra Miller one into a exciting and good situation with revealing this new actor at the end of the movie. That is a possible situation. But yeah, guys, that's all to go over. Hopefully we don't hear anything more in regards to new allegations against Ezra. I definitely won't be doing a video on it, just because I'm not focusing on that. I'm just focusing on this goddamn movie, because that's what I've been waiting for almost a decade. It's crazy that it's taken this long. It shouldn't take this long. It shouldn't be this difficult. But I'm just going to focus on the movie side. I'm not drama alert. I'm not Keemstar. I don't care for that crap. I just wanted to get this movie out, so I'm going to be focusing on movie-related news in regards to it rather than any sort of drama stuff. I just don't really care too much about it. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want to drop a like on it to show support, you can. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this situation. What option do you think is the most likely, and also which one do you want the most? I think most would want reshoot scenes with a new actor. But I guess also just weigh it up, because I think if you just had to choose one, I think just releasing the movie is just the easiest thing. But I think most people would probably want just reshoot the new scenes regardless of what the cost would be. But yeah, let me know your opinions in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.